I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything.
Long before cameras captured his every expression, Prince Harry carried a truth he never intended to share, one born in silence, sharpened by pressure and hidden beneath the polished smile he wore beside Meghan. But when he finally let it slip, insiders say the room froze. This wasn't a rumor, nor a careless remark. It was a confession years in the making, echoing through the palace and beyond. And now the world is asking, what did Harry reveal that changes everything about Meghan, and what is its impact worldwide? When the mask slipped inside the palace, Prince Harry has finally begun to speak about what he says really happened behind palace walls, and those close to him insist this is not the careful, guarded version the public has heard before. They describe this as the first time he has talked without measuring every word, without protecting feelings or shaping the story for appearances. And what is coming out now, they say, is darker than anyone expected. The strain in his marriage, once dismissed as rumor, no longer hides in whispers. For the prince, who was once known for his easy smile and rebellious charm, something has clearly changed. The world that knew Harry the Spare now sees a man who looks tired, distant, and weighed down by years of unseen pressure. According to people close to him, Harry has started to recognize patterns he once ignored. He is said to be slowly confronting things he brushed aside. Moments of control, emotional pressure, and a constant rewriting of his role in his own life. An insider told The Telegraph that Harry is only now beginning to piece it together, as if waking up from a dream he didn't realize he was inside. For someone who built his life around protecting others, this realization has reportedly shaken him deeply. In one of his most emotional reflections, Harry opened up about what hurts most. Not fame, not money, but distance. "I miss the UK," he admitted. "I miss parts of the UK. Of course I do." His voice softened as he spoke about his children and the life they will never know firsthand. "I think it's really quite sad that I won't be able to show my children my homeland." It wasn't just nostalgia in his words. It was a loss, a sense that something permanent had been taken from him and no success in California could ever replace it. For years, Harry played the role of the loyal husband, the supporter, the shield. He defended Meghan through every storm, through every headline, every accusation, every wave of public judgment.
What I'm talking about. Yeah. Thank you.
Whether the world called them heroes or villains, he stood firm. But those who know him say there has been a slow, painful awakening, a growing understanding that the version of events sold to the public was not always the same as the one he lived privately. That shift became impossible to ignore last week in California when Harry attended a private wellness summit focused on men's mental health. The event was meant to be quiet, supportive, and controlled. But then a journalist asked something that instantly changed the mood. The question was simple, yet it landed with unexpected force. "Do you ever feel like you lost yourself in love?" Those who were there say Harry froze. His smile faded. The room went still. For a moment, it looked like he might not answer at all. And in that silence, something cracked. Not loudly, but enough for those watching closely to realize this was no longer the same carefully scripted prince. This time, the story was not being performed. And once that door was opened, there was no graceful way to shut it again. Now, how did Prince Harry's quiet confession ignite chaos behind palace walls? And could this be the turning point we never saw coming? Stay tuned. A prince caught between loyalty and escape. Back home, life has moved forward without him. His brother is flourishing in his role, calm and confident in the future that always seemed destined for him. Even King Charles, once at the center of public tension and private strain, now appears to be focused on history, responsibility, and how he will be remembered, rather than on old family rifts. Meanwhile, Harry appears frozen in place, not fully in London, not fully settled in Los Angeles, instead drifting somewhere in between, caught in a strange emotional in-between, suspended by love, yet weighed down by it at the same time. When he says, "I love the two of us," it sounds real, but according to people close to the situation, it also sounds complicated. Behind the scenes, sources claim Meghan has tightened her grip on almost every part of their shared life. They allege that nothing moves forward without her approval. Not the projects Harry signs on to, not the friends he keeps, not the words he chooses in public. The fear, they say, is that he might step out of line, that he might speak too freely, or show too much of what he is really feeling. And that, insiders claim, is exactly what happened at the summit. The moment Harry spoke from the heart, the calm carefully built around their image reportedly collapsed. Within minutes of the clip spreading online, Meghan's team is said to have launched into crisis mode. Calls were made, journalists were contacted, event staff were questioned, publicists scrambled to regain control of the story. But by then, it was too late. The internet had already seized the moment. Viewers labeled it Harry's slip of truth, and the phrase spread almost as fast as the footage itself. To many watching, it didn't look rehearsed, it looked raw. Sources say Meghan was furious. Behind closed doors, one insider claims she confronted him directly, accusing Harry of being reckless.
I can safely say from my experience and all the travelling that I've done,
And feeding exactly what the tabloids were hungry for. But this time, something was different. For the first time in years, Harry reportedly didn't retreat. He didn't soften his words. He didn't apologize into silence. Instead, he stood his ground. When you step back and connect the dots, the pattern becomes clearer. His growing silence during joint appearances, his choice to attend more events alone, his quieter tone, his reflective mood. All of it points to a man slowly pulling away from something that once felt safe, but now feels tight around his chest. Those close to him describe it not as rebellion, but as survival. Then came another moment that deepened the tension even further. After the main session ended, Harry reportedly stayed back to speak privately with a small group of attendees. There, in a quieter setting, away from cameras and sound bites, witnesses say he opened up again. When asked about his mental health journey, he responded with words that lingered in the air long after he stopped speaking. Healing means telling the truth, even when it hurts people you love. For many, that single sentence sounded heavier than it should have. It didn't feel like a general statement. It felt personal. The tabloids grabbed it instantly, turning it into headlines and theories. To some, it sounded like guilt. To others, like courage. But to everyone paying attention, it sounded like a man standing at the edge of a decision that could change everything, and no one knew which way he would step next. So how far will Harry go when speaking his truth threatens everything he once protected? And could this be the breaking point? Keep watching. When confession turned into collision, the headlines arrived like thunder. Harry's cryptic confession. Signs of trouble in the marriage. Prince finally admits the pain behind the Meghan story. To many readers, it looked like another day of royal drama splashed across front pages. But people close to Harry insist the words weren't just dramatic. They were frighteningly close to the truth. Those who have known him for years.
You know, that'd be really good fun, because when you live in an area, you never actually go to sightseeing.
Say something in him has shifted in a way they've never seen before. The easygoing soldier, the prince with the loud laugh, the man who filled every room with energy. That version of Harry, they say, is fading. Friends now describe him as quieter, distant, and often lost in thought. A former military friend told the Mirror that the change is impossible to ignore. The man who once told jokes and insisted on buying the next round now sits in silence, barely touching his glass. It's like he's somewhere else entirely, the friend said. And then came a remark that cut deeper than any headline. Harry reportedly admitted, "Sometimes I miss being invisible." The irony is painful. A man who gave up a palace in search of privacy, now wishing he could vanish altogether. The freedom he chased may have become the cage he never saw coming. The lucrative deals, the documentaries, the public confessions, the interviews meant to give him control over his own story now seem to trap him inside it. What once looked like escape now feels like obligation. Every appearance is watched, every word judged, and insiders claim Meghan sees the unraveling. But her fear isn't just about their marriage. It's about survival of something bigger. The image, the business, the brand they built together. One Hollywood source put it bluntly, if he keeps talking like this, the whole thing cracks. And once it cracks, there's no going back. For Meghan, this new open version of Harry is dangerous. The carefully managed future suddenly looks fragile. This isn't gossip anymore. This is a risk, and the world has started to sense it too. Social media didn't just react, it exploded. Clips from the Wellness Summit spread across platforms within minutes. Millions watched.
It's safe to say from my experience and all the travelling that I've done all over the world, speaking to people your age.
Harry wasn't delivering a polished message. He was exposing pieces of himself that had been hidden for a long time. If Harry's quiet honesty sent shockwaves through Montecito, what followed turned shock into chaos. Insiders claim Meghan went into full crisis mode. Phones ringing non-stop, publicists pulling strings. Advisors scrambled to slow a story that was already racing ahead without them. One source describes a scene at the Montecito mansion that felt more like a war room than a home. Meghan, barefoot on cold marble floors, pacing with her phone in hand, issuing commands between sharp breaths. Get it taken down. I don't care how. Flag it. Call the press team. Do something. But the internet doesn't forget, and it doesn't wait. By the time anyone tried to control the fire, the flames were already everywhere. Harry had crossed a line he could not step back from. He wasn't just sharing emotion, he was revealing truth about pressure, about identity, about love strained by spotlight and ambition. And now, with every new word he speaks, it feels less like a confession and more like a countdown, because once the truth starts running free, it rarely stops at the door it first escapes through. So how will Harry go when the truth breaks free? Can anyone contain it, or will everything finally unravel? Stay glued. When the script collapsed at home, Harry's words still echoed long after the lights at the summit dimmed. Freedom can look a lot like a cage. That single line spread across the internet at lightning speed, copied into captions, analyzed in videos, dissected in comment sections. No publicist could soften it. No carefully written statement could pull it back. For the first time in years, the story wasn't being guided. It was running loose. For a very long time, people close to the couple say Meghan had been the architect of their public life. Every interview angle, every appearance, every project announcement, carefully arranged. Their image was built with precision. But this time, the control slipped. And according to insiders, that loss of control cut deeply. When Harry returned home from the Wellness Summit, sources say there was no calm discussion, no careful pause. Ibayaho was confronted almost immediately. What followed, one insider claimed, was one of the most heated fights they had ever had. Meghan was reportedly furious, telling Harry that he had gone too far. She accused him of betraying her, of letting the world see something they were never supposed to see. In her anger, she allegedly told him that he had made her look like the villain, like a controlling wife pulling strings from behind the curtain. She said he had damaged everything they built. Harry, however, did not retreat this time. He did not lower his voice. He did not soften his words. According to those familiar with the moment, he stood in place and said something simple but brutal in its honesty. "I didn't ruin anything. I just told the truth." 6 words, and everything changed. The room, once filled with tension, reportedly snapped into silence. And then Meghan walked out. The door was slammed so hard, one source said, that a chandelier shook overhead. But while the argument inside the house burned quietly behind closed walls, an even bigger fire was raging outside. Online, the reaction grew wild. Royal watchers replayed past interviews. Body language experts froze frames and circled expressions. TikTok creators built theories clip by clip. Twitter threads stretched endlessly, trying to map the moment Harry changed. YouTube channels analyzed every pause, every breath, every flicker in his eyes from the summit, and they all reached the same conclusion in their own words. Something inside Harry had cracked open. Even the British press, once kept at a distance and fought fiercely by Harry himself, surged forward again. The morning headlines were unforgiving. Stories spoke of a cryptic confession. Others suggested the fairy tale was fading. Questions filled the front pages and airwaves. Was this honesty or regret? Freedom or collapse? What made it worse was the silence. No cheerful statement, no calm photo release, no united front. Montecito went quiet. And in the world of public figures, silence often speaks louder than any explanation. For years, Harry had asked to be left alone. But now, without saying much at all, he has drawn more attention than ever before. And this time, it wasn't anger in his voice or blame in his words. It was something harder to ignore. It was truth. And truth, once spoken out loud, doesn't ask permission before it rewrites everything it touches. So what happens when silence speaks louder than words and truth shatters carefully built illusions? Can Harry really reclaim his life? When relief looked like rebellion. When Harry finally spoke, it wasn't with anger this time. There was no bitter edge, no sharp tone, no fire in his voice. According to a close friend, what stood out most was not frustration, it was relief. The kind of relief that comes when someone stops pretending. The friend said Harry looked lighter, almost like he had let go of something heavy he had been carrying alone for years. That brief moment, it seemed he wasn't speaking to the public at all. He was finally being honest with himself, honest about what this life had become, honest about how different it was from everything he once believed it would be. But if Harry felt free for even a moment, Meghan was determined not to let that version become the headline. Within hours, according to insiders, she went into full crisis mode. What followed was described as an all-out push to control the damage. Favors were called in. Friendly journalists were contacted. Stories were carefully planted. Within 48 hours, articles began appearing across major platforms, all pushing the same message in different ways. Some claimed Harry had been misunderstood.
It happened a few weeks ago, earlier this month, here at our cottage.
Others suggested his words had been taken out of context. One article described him as emotionally exhausted, not reflective. Another hinted that he was simply revisiting the past and that the public had wrongly read into it. The strategy was clever and fast, and in another story, it might have worked. But this time, it didn't. The internet wasn't convinced. The footage was too clear. The emotion is too real. Comment sections filled instantly. He looks broken. This isn't strength, this is survival. She's protecting herself, not him. Those were the words flooding social media feeds. Every attempt to paint a smooth picture only seemed to make the cracks more visible. The harder Meghan's team pushed the idea that their marriage was stronger than ever, the louder the doubt grew. Behind closed doors, friends say Harry seemed to shrink into himself. He spent long hours alone in the garden, walking without purpose, or sitting silently by the fireplace late into the night. The house that once symbolized escape now felt heavy, empty, too quiet. He reportedly stopped taking calls from some of Meghan's Hollywood connections, distancing himself from the world that once promised him reinvention. The high-profile life, full of deals and carefully staged moments, no longer held the same shine, and with that distance came realization. One insider told reporters that Harry was beginning to understand how isolated he had become. His family remained far away, his old friends scattered, and for a long time the only constant voice in his life had been his wife's. What once felt like support now felt like control, not in obvious ways, but in small, quiet ones that stack up over time. Who he spoke to, what he said, how he showed up, the shape of his days, the direction of his life. To the world, he was free, but inside that freedom felt narrow. The interviews, the deals, the public image, none of it felt like his anymore. And yet, walking away from it felt impossible. The more he withdrew, the more obvious it became that something inside him had already started to break away, even if his life had not yet caught up. And that is what frightened those around him most. Because Harry wasn't just going quiet, he was going inward. And once someone starts listening to their own thoughts again, they rarely return to silence as before. And how did Harry's quiet retreat into his own mind spark a storm that could unravel everything around him? Stay with us. When truth became louder than loyalty. The realization didn't arrive gently. It hit Harry all at once, like a wave, strong enough to knock the ground from under his feet. Once doubt had entered his mind, it refused to leave. When the image of a perfect life finally cracked, he couldn't unsee the flaws beneath it. According to several sources, this is when Harry began doing something quiet but meaningful, away from cameras, and without announcements, he started reaching back into his past. Old army friends, a former palace aide who had once been a steady presence during his royal years. These weren't dramatic moves or bold statements. They were small attempts to feel solid again, to reconnect with the version of himself that existed before contracts, headlines, and curated lives. It wasn't about fixing relationships just yet. It was about remembering who he had been before the noise swallowed everything else. Friends say he wanted to feel grounded, real, human again. While Harry was pulling inward, Meghan was facing a very different reality. Public opinion was shifting, fast and without warning. The warmth that once followed her name was cooling. Questions were growing louder, and behind the scenes, professional losses were stacking up. Spotify had already ended their partnership. Netflix interest had reportedly slowed to a trickle. And now, what frightened Meghan most was not the headlines or the deals falling through. It was the sense that Harry,
to do some form of therapy, or at least be able to talk more about
the one person she believed would always stand in front of her like a shield, was starting to drift. Sources say she didn't handle that change quietly. Instead, she began preparing what insiders described as a counterstrike, a major magazine feature, carefully crafted, emotionally charged, designed to reshape the story yet again. The plan, according to those familiar with it, was to present herself as misunderstood, as a woman targeted unfairly, dragged through a storm of judgment and false narratives. It was a move she had made before, and one that had once worked. This time, it didn't land. Hollywood did not rush to her defense. Fashion editors stayed silent. Talk show invitations did not arrive. Friends who once stood beside her publicly seemed suddenly unavailable. The support she relied on had thinned into distance. The protection she once wore like armor faded into quiet. And in that quiet, something shifted. One member of staff reportedly overheard her speaking late at night, voice unsteady, frustration pouring through every word. "I gave up everything for him," she said, "everything. And now he's making me look like I'm the villain." To her, it felt like betrayal, like abandonment. like the floor suddenly, vanishing beneath her feet. But Harry's side of the story was painfully different. Those close to him insist he wasn't trying to rewrite her as a monster. He wasn't trying to tear her down. He wasn't planning revenge. In fact, he wasn't thinking about destruction at all. He was thinking about survival. The way friends describe it, Harry wasn't escaping Meghan. He was trying to escape silence inside himself, the loneliness he never addressed, the parts of his identity that slowly faded under the weight of reinvention. Every phone call he made wasn't a rejection.
And before you know it, within 24 hours, they could be.
It was a reaching, a grab for something solid in a life that suddenly felt unsteady. And while Meghan searched for cameras, Harry searched for memories, for proof of the man he once was, for fragments of a life that felt real. And as both of them moved in opposite directions, one toward rewriting the story and the other toward remembering it, the space between them grew wider, heavier, and harder to bridge, leaving everyone watching to wonder what happens when loyalty collides with identity, and neither one is willing to disappear quietly. So, what did Harry discover about himself while Meghan fought to control the narrative? And could this finally shatter everything they built together? The night he found his voice. Again. That same week, away from headlines and flashing lights, Harry quietly attended a private gathering for veterans in Santa Barbara. There were no cameras, no press statements, no stage-managed moments. Meghan did not attend. What he walked into instead was something he had not felt in a long time. Familiarity. These were men and women who knew him before the royal exit, before the documentaries, before California became the backdrop of his life. They remembered the soldier, not the celebrity, the friend, not the figure. Those who were there say Harry looked different, not polished, not rehearsed, just tired and real. At one point, his voice reportedly broke as he spoke to a small group standing nearby. "You don't realize how lost you are until someone takes the compass away," he said. Then came the sentence that quietly stunned the room. "I thought I was doing the right thing, but somewhere along the line I stopped being me." No one interrupted. No one needed to. That moment didn't stay contained within those walls for long. Word spread through the veteran community almost immediately, not in headlines, but in messages, phone calls, and whispers. A prince who had spent years surrounded by noise was finally speaking in silence, and the silence listened. And then, almost as if the timing could not have been more dramatic, another piece of the story surfaced. A journalist known for close royal access revealed something few saw coming. Behind the scenes, Harry had been secretly working with a publisher on a new personal project, not a memoir, not a Netflix-style tell-all, something different, something private, and, most importantly, something not approved by Meghan. Those familiar with the project describe it as unfiltered and deeply personal. Instead of presenting a version of himself shaped for public appeal, Harry was writing about identity itself, about how love can reshape you, how loyalty can blur you, how loss can hollow you, and how, without realizing it, you can wake up one day inside a life that no longer feels like your own.
I can safely say from my experience and all the travelling that I've done.
Early excerpts, according to insiders, are painfully honest. This time, it isn't her story he's telling, it's his. And that, more than any leaked argument or viral clip, is what has truly shaken everything. Because images can be controlled, interviews can be spun, damage can sometimes be repaired. But a man telling his own story? That is dangerous to any illusion. Sources say Meghan is terrified not of what Harry has already said, but of what is coming next. Because once a voice is found, it does not easily go back to being silent. And once a truth is written down, it cannot be blurred, softened, or erased by any press strategy. The veterans saw a man who felt unmoored. The public saw a prince under pressure. But those who know the deeper story see something else entirely. They see a man standing at the edge of a version of life he no longer recognizes, and another one he is finally brave enough to face. Because this isn't about scandal, it's about reckoning. And when someone begins rewriting their truth for the first time, they rarely stop at the first page. So, what do you think happens when a prince stops protecting the story and starts telling his own truth? Does freedom finally follow, or does everything collapse? We'd love your thoughts in the comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.